When constructing the joint for the hip, make sure the ball joint is fitted the correct way round inside the hip joint and that it's free to move. This movement is very important. When fitting the screws, you may find it easier to turn the joint over and place the nuts into the hexagonal recesses from above. Once these are in place, gently rotate the hip and tighten the already inserted screws from the other side. And take particular care not to over-tighten these. Also, when tightening the screws, check for stiffness. The joint needs to be tight enough to hold the leg in place, but loose enough to allow movement. This is very, very important, so take some time adjusting the tightness of the screws until the movement feels just right. Sometimes it can be tricky for a nut to stay in place when trying to fit a screw. An idea to help with this is to glue the nut into the hexagonal recess. It holds it in place and also saves it getting lost if the screw is removed later on. However, be careful not to use too much glue and make sure that it doesn't go onto the thread inside the nut. Make sure that the hip joint is fitted correctly into the femur. It fits into a curved recess and is held in place with a bracket. Note that this bracket isn't symmetrical and can only be fitted one way round. And then secure the bracket in place with 2 screws. The knee skin is quite a tight fit and needs to be lifted over some raised screw sockets on the knee. A large screwdriver or similar tool inserted under the skin will help with this, but be very gentle and take care not to damage the skin. In many places, the sections of skin will need to be joined. First, check to see where the contact areas are, as this is usually the best place to apply the glue. Also, rather than attempting to join the entire length in one go, you may find it easier to glue a small length at a time and let this set fully before moving on to the next section. Once the glue of the first section has dried thoroughly, move on to the next section, applying glue to the contact areas as before, and hold in place firmly until the glue has dried. During the build, the skin will need to be fitted around the bones, and it may need to be stretched slightly. If this is difficult to do, it may help to gently warm the skin with a hairdryer, which makes it that little bit more pliable. The warming may take a little while, but after doing this, the skin should be much easier to stretch. The kits include a spare of the small screws being used, and so you should very quickly build up a collection of spares, and will continue to do so throughout the build. Therefore, it's worth taking a little time to organise these, possibly in a partition box or small plastic bags, and of course make sure they're labelled, and they can even be useful for future builds.